Okay, I don't remember who requested it, but I know Bison was definitely on board with this, and a couple other people in the 454 SS Discord server. So, this is a quick overview of all of the things in my workbench. We'll get around to this one in a little bit. If we go all the way down to the bottom here, to the oldest, we have some Stormworks default vehicles. I was trying to figure out the radio gantry, didn't work out. And then we have the starter boat, which is one of the first things I ever made. It is tiny and doesn't float well, and you have to spawn it on the bottom of this, or else it will just flip over. But if we get in it here, and then I barely remember how to make this thing work, but I know you go full throttle. We'll throw it in high gear, hit the starter, hold W, and it'll go. And it's not fast, but it's not slow. But it's not good either. This was me trying to figure everything out. It's completely hollow on the inside. Really nothing interesting down here, other than, you know, the gearboxes and all of that, and all the fuel tanks. This was in a classic career save, so I didn't have all that interesting technology. But it is the first thing I think I ever made, or at least the first thing I still have that I made. After that, it actually goes to bigger boat, which, again, you have to kind of spawn down low. This one's a bit more interesting in that if you see the engines in here backwards, that's a very telltale sign that at some point I had these things diesel electric. So there used to be a generator back over there, and then a big electric motor driving everything, but it was never efficient enough, so I never kept it. And I think this might be one of the places... Oh, fuel adder spelled wrong. That might still exist. Yeah, it doesn't still have it, which is interesting. There's a generator controller, microcontroller that I made out there somewhere. And... yeah, it appears here and there. We're gonna turn the clutch back down. Turn on the starter. I remember this thing actually being really decent for what it was. It has a pretty good extra tank capacity. So there's an extra tank in here so you can run, you know, usually it was diesel when I was moving back and forth. Some passenger seats and basically search and rescue stuff, so you could just complete missions. And this thing was pretty good about it, other than the fact that you can turn it by standing on one side. But it's definitely not fast. It could be a lot better. But, you know, it's got way too much fuel. It's got a reverse gear, complex little setup. I didn't really know what I was doing. Why is it? Oh, this thing doesn't have a high gear, that's right. So, yeah, nothing super interesting in Bigger Boat. From there, it actually goes to Bigger Boat V2. I believe this one's actually still diesel electric. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Yeah, it is still diesel electric. Which, again, I had a real thing about actually doing constantly. There's the electric motor. So this has the generator controller, microcontroller. There it is. I like this little MC that I kind of cobbled together, but there's better ways of dealing with this thing. This one Yeah, it's going to spawn and start the engine. And also go completely underwater, because I forgot you have to spawn it at the bottom again. I don't know what any of these dials actually mean. This is speed, and it's every speed, so up and down counts too. Fuel consumption spelled poorly. Battery level. Generator level. RPS. Temp going through the roof. Yeah. And this thing, it's diesel electric, so it'll just kind of putter along at the speed of slow. It is not fast. And the RPS is not good. This was before I figured out how to make these more efficient. That and this is a long time ago, so updates kind of broke everything. All of the... I didn't realize it had so many exhaust manifolds. That's not great. Yeah, there's definitely improvements that could be made. But it doesn't really matter. I'm kind of proud of the stack, though. From there it went to large ship. This one doesn't actually work, but this thing is big. It could technically drive if you went and hooked, like, the air, fuel, or fuel's already hooked up, I think. But the exhaust and the air up, and then threw some controls on it, it should still work. Albeit probably very poorly. I forget where it was getting fuel from. Where is the fuel? There it is. Oh, it just comes straight from the tank below. That's right. Yeah, this is not great, and this whole shape is... Yeah, let's move on from that. From there, there's generator test. We'll get back around to the flat stuff, the test bench stuff in a bit. Flat car signal, not mine, not mine. Goes to big engine, that is mine. Starter ship V2 is completely empty. It is just a scaled up version of that original boat. Keep going, we're going to ignore all of these for a little bit. Starter tanker isn't mine, but I had to resave it because something was messed up in the game. Big hydrofoil tanker is probably one of my favorites. So the main ship itself is not mine. I got that off the workshop. I did, however, add the jet pods and the hydrofoils beneath it. And it is currently not that great. It tends to break in very interesting ways. We'll let it spawn, it takes a second. Yeah, it tends to break in very weird ways, and it doesn't really go that fast. I mean, under its own power, you get like 6 kilometers an hour. Something with the fluid jets isn't quite right. Yeah, you can get 8 kilometers an hour. What if you unfold the jet pods? You gotta watch it very yeah, it'll fall around. And it'll go pretty quick. Actually, yeah, because unfortunately, that messed up. Sometimes they'll get stuck too. Yeah. It's not good. There we go. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. No, we're not. We're going ridiculously slow. Well, if you could override that clutch, you could probably add something here. Very strong. Yeah, that's about all they've got. But this is a cool little boat that I found on, or I can't say little, it's kind of big. It's a cool boat I found on the workshop. I do like the boat. I'm just sad that my hydrofoils don't really work and this thing is really slow now. Even though the original boat used fluid jets for propulsion, I think even it is really slow now. I'm probably, we're just gonna load that save. It's faster. There's going to be quite a few things where loading the save will be faster. I warn this now. Okay, let's see. Go back in here. So, after big hydrofoil tanker, we have small, or starter boat hydrofoil test, which is that original starter boat, but with hydrofoils. This is bad. Very bad. It does go fast, and it does backflips. It's completely uncontrollable. I'm not even going to drive it. Continuing through, that one's not really mine. That was fixing someone's creation because jet engine exploit. Tanker hydrofoil, I mean, it's another workshop boat that I made a hydrofoil. It's not an amazing technology here. Jet engine test, big gun test, tank test, truck gen set. These two are not mine. I don't know why they're in... I know why this one is. I put that generator on it. I don't know what's up with this one. Ultimate hydrofoil test doesn't float. But the idea was we put this incredulous turbine exploit engine in here, and we hook it, well, yeah, you see, we hook it straight up to some, fluid jets, and we have ourselves a hydrofoil that can do, the speed of sound. This never worked. I could never get it to float with just this, even though, like, this whole area is empty. I think this area is full of fluid, and then this whole area is empty, too. Like, it doesn't float. Small starter tankers, much newer. This is a more recent classic career that I decided to do. Much more efficiently laid out, because, the seats are back here. All the stuff's up there, and everything just kind of makes more sense. The hull's a shape, finally. And it's got its rudders back here. I think the exhaust just dumps out the back there, yeah. I don't even know where it's intaking. Oh, right there. We were having cooling issues back in the day. Because, again, this is classic career. I didn't have the electric radiators. I had to hang the radiator out somewhere. Down in here, bunch of fuel tanks. Some of them are empty. Those are the storage tanks, and then you have your main tanks. A sideways small engine. I was very proud about that. Into... yeah, straight out. This thing works great, but it's small. I forget. You gotta give it some RP, or some throttle. It's got a centrifugal clutch setup, which is some microcontroller I found on the workshop. There's high gear. Didn't have one. The trick with this is never go flat out. Always bring it down a little bit. And it'll move along at pretty decent speed. It's got lights for seeing in the dark. You know, I think the whole thing backlights. As you can see, we're already overheating it. Bring her down a little bit further. She doesn't really overheat as readily. Turn on performance mode and overheat it even harder. I think it does pick up a little bit of speed. And take her back to workbench. After that was small starter tanker 2, no hybrid. I tried originally to put a diesel electric system in this. As you can see, it is just the same thing but scaled up a bit further. I tried to put diesel electric in here, hence why the engine's backwards again. This is the back of the boat. It's got this big 4-cylinder 3x3 in here. And I could never make the thing work right. Directly seawater cooled. I mean, it's a pretty effective layout for an engine. It works, and it works quite well. This space here is all fuel tank. This space is air, empty, and you're able to pump between the storage and the fuel tank. Normal fuel tank with a hole in the floor. I don't remember why that was there. Oh, because all those things need to, yeah. And then a more air gap up front. This thing, I actually really like this one. It worked really well for the level of technology I had. Come on, there we go. So it's got winches, it's got, you know, this is your fuel level, a bunch of ropes. Gonna come up here. Some other, you know, fun stuff we have, you know, a couple empty ones so you can just put random stuff there if you end up picking stuff up. Come in here, it's actually key start, but not in a great way. And throttle up. And it can move along at pretty good speed. And, oh yeah, the temp sensor doesn't actually work. This thing had a tendency to randomly overheat. It's quick, it's powerful. The reason it has the winch is because I would use it to drag boats around during missions, right? And I think this thing actually, yes it does, it has... This might be, hold on. This might actually be the first version that had, no, it had key start. Which I think evolved into, yes, okay. If the RPS, or what is the thing that sets off that PID? Right. If the throttle in is less than 0.15, it activates the PID and feeds, and if it's not, then it feeds through the throttle in, just straight to this, which yeah, that's completely redundant, but it's there. I remember now. Yeah, so this is my little idle controller. It's just a PID. I had to do the advanced one because I was tuning it. But you set what you want your idle RPS to be. It goes into the PID. The PID figures it out, and it comes through. You'll see this again in a bit because something very cool uses it later. First version of Rescue Boat Challenge, and this is where the Rescue Boat engine controller comes in. You see a lot of the same things. This version is outdated because all this does is starter, throttle out, clutch, and the throttle up, throttle down. It's the reason this one's so simplistic is the original intention I had with the Rescue Boat Challenge was this would be spawned at a starter workbench without any node unlocks. Like any research, you could just start a new classic career and spawn it. This didn't work out. The boat works. Usually. Sometimes it doesn't, and we'll see which one it is today. Let's go ahead and hit the starter. It's key start, so that just stays on. RPS, increase RPS. Auto clutch, so it just slams it basically. And it works. And I like the way this one leans into corners, but it leans too far. And I couldn't get stabilization to really work. I couldn't get the cooling to work right. You see how hot we got off of that? Yeah, this thing didn't work well. So then coming through Rescue Boat Challenge 2, this is how this sat for a very long time. Mostly because as soon as I had hit this point, the compressed gases update broke everything. But this still works. This works now. They fixed it. I'm going to hit the circuit breaker first, turn on the key. This is usually, as you can tell, what everything just kind of looks like when I'm doing testing. We're going to go ahead and hit high gear, move this up to 1 is unstable, that's stable, and bring up the throttle. Now this still only has the 3-cylinder in it, so it's not nearly as fast. Even then, it's quick. It also doesn't have the same gearing. Yeah, 1 isn't really stable. It'll kind of sit up on the foils too high. That's always been a problem. That's why the final version, you can't go to 1. But yeah, that was the original thing. Some other stuff here. Where's the next boat? Boat challenge test. I'm not even going to cover that. It's the same thing. It just has a 4-cylinder. The original build challenge submission that I made. You've probably already seen 454's video covering it, but I'd like to talk about it a little bit more. I like this boat. It works pretty well. And everything just kind of works out well for it. You know, it's got this 4-cylinder down in here. It's got the tiger stripes, which are completely illogical. There's no reason for them. I got a little carried away because I saw someone else's boat had stripes and I wanted stripes. And I missed a few on top. Look at that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, this is exactly as 454 demonstrated. Go ahead and flip high gear. That's what it'll get up to without the foils. You increase the foils, and it'll take off. It's fast. It's very fast, and a little unstable on the foils, but if you put it down a little bit, you can make some pretty good corners with it. One of the coolest things it does is if we bring this down to basically the minimum, turn off high gear, turn on pump mode, RPS goes crazy. Now we use the arrow keys, we aim the cannon wherever we want, and we have ourselves a water cannon. And it's got some pretty good range on it too. But the best part is, while we're in pump mode, you see the engine is revved up. We can't really go anywhere except if we increase throttle, which actually controls the clutch, we start going places, and we can still use the water cannon. And we'd also get some pretty decent speed going. It works great. You know, this ticks all of my boxes. The only thing that I'm a little upset about is that the autopilot thing doesn't This is good. Pilot this thing back into the harbor. And take it out. Alright. Up next, build challenge jet. I'll show it real quick. I just replaced the power plant with a jet engine. And yes, the intake sticks out the top. It's less than ideal. It doesn't need to, but I was not thinking right and put the compressor on there backwards, and nothing really worked. I also had the combustion chamber backwards, I think. There it goes. Oh, good. Oh, don't do that. That's right. Yeah. I remember how to pilot this thing. If you go too fast, it does that. Whoa. That's a new one. There we go. Yeah. It gets a little less than happy if you come out of the water. The only thing I've never really tested was if pump mode still actually worked, and I think it actually does still. I think that just connects back into the original contraption. It doesn't really matter. That was just proof of concept. How fast can I take it? And the answer is very fast, but it gets very unstable at high speed. Now, I think that's the last boat other than another hydrofoil test that never really went anywhere. Right, bison foil. This was Lord Bison's submission to the build challenge. I took the water jets off and moved them to further down on the bottom instead of on this shelf that he had. Added one of these here, and as much as I tried, I couldn't get it to foil. I think it just needs a few more of these fin rudders, and it'll totally sit up on the foils. It'll work. So anyway, that's those. Now we gotta run over to the hangar and show off the rest of these. So going back down to the bottom, we're gonna start down there again. Generator test is kind of what it says on the tin. I have no idea how to make this thing work, but if I remember right, it's testing generator control. That original MC I was talking about, yeah. So I don't know how to make this work. I don't know if it still works or not. I've never really messed with it. So we're gonna just kind of leave that be. Next one I made was Big Engine, which was playing with the 5x5 engines. And I still like this intake and fuel setup, but this was not good. Interestingly, I think this cooling loop still totally works now. Is it enough? No, probably not. Let's see, gen trailer, fuel trailer, truck mark 1. These all go together. So truck mark 1 is this little electric pickup truck that I made. It works okay, but its range was really limited. So the idea was you get this generator trailer and you haul this behind it, but this generator trailer doesn't carry any fuel. So you get this fuel trailer and you put that behind the generator trailer and just pump the fuel into the generator. So you have this little road train going along because this thing doesn't generate its own power. It was hilarious to watch, and I don't have the full consist saved, so there's no point in like it's going to take forever to spawn the whole thing, and I don't want to put you through that. Just know that it looks ridiculous and it's hilarious because this gen trailer, I mean, it just, you know, there's the exhaust manifold right there, you know. It just spews straight into the atmosphere. It smokes like no other. It is great. It is hilarious. and it fishtails really badly. I mean, it jackknifes everywhere. Trailer base was me trying to like make a standard for trailers, and then I discovered how bad that was. Car Trailer Mark 1 was almost, it almost worked for doing land-based missions where you have to move a car. It almost worked. Genset Trailer, I put the generator and the fuel trailer together and made them work together. Yeah, this didn't work because it needs a third axle on the back here. So the like final version has that. Truck Mark II, I literally copy and pasted the bed onto itself. This thing is 6-wheel drive, and quite strong actually. It is actually really incredible. So if we scroll up further, there it is. Truck Genset. This is the one I want to show off. So this is Truck Mark II, nothing changed there. This is the trailer with that third axle. And so if we go ahead and spawn that. First you have to enable the generator, disable the brakes on the trailer, raise the trailer leg. Remember that nothing has brakes on currently, so you come in here and you turn on the brakes. Turn off the brakes, turn on the lights, even the trailer lights work. And you just drive. I mean, it's really straightforward. This was also me experimenting with the composite. So you see we have generator, generator RPS, fuel level, fuel max. And this one doesn't fishtail as readily because it's only one big heavy trailer, not two really heavy trailers. And so you can drive around until your total batteries get below a certain point, and then the generator will kick in. And it'll charge you up, and then you just keep going. You don't even have to stop when it's charging. It's great. Let's see, after Truck Mark II, Diesel Truck Mark I almost worked. I never got around to finishing the back end of it. But it was supposed to be this almost realistic truck. It turned into a semi because the scale is ridiculous. It's got a medium engine in there, and it was going to be cool, but I never got around to it. It's got this painted grill and everything, and it looks decent. Like, it could be a big logging truck. And I never got around to it, so, yeah. Starter tanker, again, we've covered that. Jet pod test. Oh, jet pod test. I won't demonstrate it because you've kind of already seen it, but the idea was this is the jet pod. This is the hole it slides through. It just barely fits through it. I ended up adding a door on the outside that like sealed up against it. It was really cool. It was neat. But this is the jet pod that goes on the hydrofoil tanker. It works pretty well. Then you go into jet pod, which is just a little enclosed version with the door. Modular engine test. I don't remember what I was testing here. I think it was supercharging, but then also fuel pump. Is it me or are those pumps backward? No, they're right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This thing, I don't think it ever worked right. Although it is an interesting bit that I know which... No, that's centrifugal clutch. Which microcontroller is this thing running on? Am I even running it on a controller? Yeah, there it is. That's the EFI. Great little controller. I don't know the link to it. From there, basic plane, I was following a tutorial. This should look really familiar to people. It was Mr. N Jersey, and I believe that whole thing was like a copy and paste something. The whole thing. First plane, you can almost see what I was going for, but I could never make it happen. Nothing ever worked out. It was sad. Jet engine test is absurd, and I'll show that in a little bit, but it doesn't spawn here. It's too big. Big gun test. I love big gun test. It is just a big gun. This actually requires infinite electric to be on. Yep, there we go. Oop. Just gonna angle that up a little bit there. So the whole thing is mounted on these linear tracks, or whatever they're called. So when you fire it, it rolls back. And if you fire it straight up in the air, interesting things happen. What interesting things happen? I don't know, but things happen. Yeah. I love Big Gun Test because Big Gun, it makes me happy. Tank Test was me testing tanks. It never worked. It doesn't even have like controls or anything. It's really badly made. These two aren't mine. Ultimate hydrofoil I showed. Blah blah blah. Turbine Test. This just blows up, but it was testing if the turbine thing still works. But for a brief second. Yeah, the turbine exploit still totally works, and it's actually even more efficient now, for some reason. Starter build limits, just a box. We don't talk about that. Helicopter test is just a... Oh, jeez. It is just a helicopter, but it's twin turbine. This thing is awful. I don't like this helicopter. It doesn't fly very nicely. But then I was messing with it. We ignore RDF trailer. The less said about the RDF trailer, the better. I got to messing with this same helicopter. We get the dual rotor one, and this thing flies pretty nice. Yeah, it works great. Like, it doesn't really yaw around too hard because these propellers almost directly cancel each other out. I know now, with experience, that for this helicopter, if I were to add some gearboxes going back to this rear rotor, I could probably make it balance, but it's really hard to do. RDF trailer, we won't talk about that. It was a failed experiment, never really worked. It was a good idea, but it doesn't work. Modular ECU test was mostly testing the rescue boat engine controller and some other stuff. I mean, this was also like my test bed for coolant loops, as well as trying out what happens if you just run it on a big tank of air. See, full of hydrogen, oxygen, air, it doesn't really matter. It runs pretty much the same. Yeah, just kind of tests everything. 12-cylinder test was stress testing coolant and trying to find like the best loop. The answer is there isn't one. It will just overheat. And everything is bad. Silly little copter. I love silly little copter. Look at it. It's so tiny. I threw this together in like an hour, and it flies rather nicely. You have to trim a lot to get it to do anything correctly. But again, probably just needs a gearbox here to change the RPS of that thing, and it'll be fine. 4-cylinder test. I don't remember what I was testing here. I don't remember. I think it was tank pressure we were dealing with here. I don't recall. It's really hard to tell. So, yeah, I don't know. Donkey motor test. I want to show this one because this one is cool. So the idea was we have this big 16-cylinder 5x5 modular engine. But yet, if we were to come up front, there's no starter motors on this thing at all. No amount of starter motors will ever get this thing cranked up because it has a big flywheel on the back too. It'll never get to RPS. So what if instead we used one starter motor connected to this little, what is this, 12 cylinder? 1x1? Connected to the flywheel, or to the, clutch and flywheel of the big engine via some gearboxes to gear it down. So this thing spins at like 30 RPS, but this thing barely gets up over 2. Like, what would happen, and how would we arrange that? Turns out you send the starter signal of this rescue boat engine controller up to this rescue boat engine controller. Ignore the tooltips. I added those to check some stuff. To this rescue boat engine controller. And with this rescue boat engine controller, with that starter, it will send the starter to this starter and run this engine. So we have 2 separate controls here. Throttle doesn't matter, this thing goes to full anyway. So the little engine starts up, runs up, takes a few stabs at it because the auto clutch sets a little low for it. There we go. Runs it up. Big engine turns up to speed. I forgot to set the big engine gets up to speed, hits 2, runs wild. It makes some good power while we're at it. That is a lot of power. That is a lot of power, actually. Jeez. Can we get that to go? Just gonna stall it. No, that's sitting. That's right. That's how we do it. Okay. So that's 10 RPS. Yeah, it'll work. This has no coolant loop. It'll just sit here and overheat slowly. Mostly, it was a demonstration of the little engine that could turn the big engine. And it was going to die anyway. Yeah. This thing doesn't work very well. But it demonstrates that donkey motors are totally a thing you can do. Small generators, just this tiny little generator. The idea was, I think it's a 1x1 single cylinder. It's really hard to tell. Where's the cylinder? It's in here somewhere. There it is. Yeah, a little single cylinder 1x1. Yeah, it works, but whatever. Big tank. I love big tank. It's steam powered. It is ungodly large. And it goes kind of fast, question mark. Yeah, I'm not going to demonstrate it. Stupid dozer. I love stupid dozer. Little 4-cylinder motor in here. And it works now. Originally when I built it, it didn't really work the way I wanted it to. But now it works great. You come in here, you turn on the key. It kicks up. Give her some throttle. We'll just send her to full. Right? It's a little, you can turn. Turning was actually what killed it before. But now it works great. You can bring the blade up and down. This, I'm really proud of how that blade works. No. One of the things that everyone looks at and goes, oh, you just moved the pivots. No, it's actually all the hydraulic ram. Yep, it's all in the piston. So you can see there. It works great. Dozer V2 is that, but instead of the little 4-cylinder, I put a medium engine in it. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. I just kind of slammed a bigger motor in it. Medium dozer is supposed to be based on a D5. Doesn't... I mean, it works, but it's less than ideal. I'm not very good at this type of stuff. Stockade bed truck. We're just not going to even acknowledge that. Radial test. Okay. The idea was there's this part that allows you to connect 1x1 cylinders to a 3x3 crankshaft. And I thought that was interesting. So I tried it, and the results are very underwhelming. This thing has no power. But it's still interesting. And that's about it. Jet flat car is a flat car with a jet attached to it. I mean, are you at all surprised? This thing breaks speed limits. The only other thing I wanted to show was that jet turbine test thing, whatever the name of it is. So let's go over here, because this workbench will let me spawn it. Jet engine test. Yes, there it is. Let's go ahead and drop it to the floor, just so we don't have to spawn it in the air. This thing works via, I think it's 72 jet turbines in a single combustion chamber, no compressor, an intake that isn't even fully needed. It depends on the update. Sometimes it is. So this motor spins up all the turbines, which spins everything else up. And all the turbines are also hooked up to this generator via a ridiculous gear ratio. So you just hit start. You hear that? Turn off start. It turns up. And we're going to turn it off because it's really, really loud. The thing is, they fixed it, because it used to say 0 for fuel consumption per hour. It was free energy. Now it does actually consume fuel, and it's kind of annoying. And I think that was it. Yeah, pretty much it. So, yeah, I'm just going to zoom in on this thing again. Yeah, so thanks for checking this out. It's a really scuffed video, I know, but why not? It was requested. I felt like doing it. Let me know if there's any other videos you'd like me to do or anything. I'd like to try and get into this. Alright, cool, bye.